I've never been a huge fan of racing games, and not a whole lot has changed after playing now. Even though it was probably the best racing game I've ever played, it wasn't quite enough to alter my opinion very much. First of all, there is no story in the game, only a tournament mode, which is not related to the story of any sort. But I don't feel this was a bad thing, seeing as how Nailed focuses on gameplay and replayability. The gameplay is simple and not very elaborate. Although it is fun for a while, there's not a whole lot you can do, such as tricks. All you can basically do is wheelies, a turbo like nitrous, and crash into other racers. There is also a huge variety of features to customize, such as your racer, male or female, and what they are wearing. You can choose to use a dirt bike or an ATV that you can customize with a variety of solid colors, or you can choose to use different paint jobs you unlock throughout tournament mode. Along with that, you can also upgrade your vehicle with different parts to make it faster at accelerating, have better control in both the air and the ground, and be able to use more turbo. Although it is fun to customize all these features, and you can have lots of fun doing it, the gameplay really isn't that great. It gets boring after a while, and it just isn't that fun. It seems like there wasn't a whole lot of work put into the graphics of Nailed. It seems like they hurry through it and get it done as quick as possible, so therefore the graphics aren't really great. They're just kind of average, mediocre level. But the scenery in this game is great. Not so much that it looks good, but just that it's so diverse. Each level is really unique. Some levels you'll be riding next to a train, other levels you'll be about to get run over of a car, and just the visual effects seem pretty good. Since the graphics aren't really that great, but it's really unique, it almost seems like the graphics of the whole game are kind of invisible. Not so much that you can't see them, but it's just like they're not even there. They don't have an effect on if this game's really good or bad. It just kind of does nothing. From the roaring engines to the perfectly put together soundtrack, the audio in Nailed excels in every way. The soundtrack in Nailed fits the ATV dirt bike atmosphere perfectly. My only criticism of the soundtrack is that it's extremely short. You may have heard the same song 3 times in the past half an hour of playing Nailed, which is pretty aggravating because it takes away from the overall experience of the game. Branching away from the soundtrack, the audio effects are put together very well. That's to be expected when you only have 2 sound effects. 1, the engine starting up and like when you're driving, and 2, when you crash into other racers and like a brick wall. The final and the worst category of the game is replayability. It's a lot of fun at first, but as you go through, it gets extremely boring and old really quickly. After your first couple times of playing each race, it's extremely boring, and you're like, come on, am I going to get a new race? And sadly, the answer to that question is no. As you go through the game, you never unlock a single new race, which is one of the factors of why this game has no replayability whatsoever. To make up for this, there are 3 different game modes. One being a no crashing mode, where each racer is transparent and you just go through them, which really is no fun at all. It really just is boring. And then there's a turbo mode, which has unlimited turbo, and you just fly past racers going 200 miles per hour. The last mode is a tricks mode, which isn't really tricks. You're just trying to gain points by either running racers off the track or crashing into them, going through these rings of fire to gain points, or you can also do a wheelie, which is the only trick in the game, and that gives you points. But once again, these modes are fun at first, but as you play through them maybe once or twice, it's like, this is so boring, it's not even fun. What's the point of not crashing into players? I mean, just making them invisible. Really shouldn't even be considered a game mode, and flying past them with turbo is probably the most fun one, but still, it's not even that great. You win every time. There's also a multiplayer Nailed, but you can tell from one time of playing it, it was not made for multiplayer, because it's exactly the same thing as the rest of the game, which I think it majorly fails in, because multiplayer is supposed to be something totally different, so you can get a break from the normality of the game. Overall, Nailed is a solid game, and therefore it deserves a 6 out of 10. For the full audio review, head on over to MediaCows.com.